I keep my goals to myself, cause whenever I share with folks, they get a look upon their face and their memory floats to a time where their goals and the stars.
What's good? Let's get into AEW Dynamite from April the 1st, 2026. It's insane that a quarter of the year is already gone. It's insane. Wow, how time flies. 2026 is moving faster than last year did. It's insane. It really truly is if you just take a moment and think about it. It's insane. Wow. We got a massive return back to AEW, that being one Chris Jericho, and we'll talk about that. We're still building the card for Dynasty, so we should have some more matches added on Collision and for the Go Home show for next week. Hopefully, we get maybe about 8 matches and maybe a couple matches on the pre-show. Tony can let it rock for a good 3 hours, maybe 3 hours and 30 minutes, and call it a night. But, you know how Tony Khan is. But personally, I don't think you need to have a lot of matches on the card, if we're being honest. You really just don't. So, there's that. All right, let's go ahead and get into Dynamite. So, we kick the show off with Tony Schiavone. He's interrupted by Chris Jericho. He gets a massive reaction because they're in Canada. They're in Jericho's hometown of Winnipeg. Well, not Jericho's, but I think Omega's. But anyway, Jericho's in his home country. Gets a massive reaction. So he gets on the mic and he shouts out Winnipeg and AEW. Chris Jericho said that he's home. And then Jericho stared into the hard cam, and then that was it. So, interesting stuff there. Makes sense, basically. Jericho being back, that's fine. We don't know how long, so his contract was frozen, and, we knew that there were going to be rumors of Jericho going back to WWE, so Tony Khan went ahead and froze his contract. So, I think in due time, Jericho will go back to WWE. It's just he has to be stuck with AEW for a minute. I'm talking about a long minute. I don't know what they're going to do with Chris Jericho going forward. I don't know. I really don't. He can't be in the main event scene. He can't. And there's no need to have him in the mid-card. Maybe you have Jericho be a manager to somebody. I think that would be great. You put Jericho with somebody who you really have hope and trust in, that can get over, that needs like a mouthpiece. I would love for maybe Jericho being the manager of Andrade. I think that would be tremendous. Get Andrade out of the Don Callis family, or you could have Jericho manage Takeshita. I think either of those options I would be fine with, and I think that would be tremendous. That would be great. And I think that would be the best usage of Chris Jericho for the time being. That would be interesting now that I really think about it. That would be some really cool shit. That would be something I'd be down to see. Andrade is great. He is. I'm a big fan of Andrade. And I'm a big fan of Takeshita. But it seems like both of them are going to be kicked out of the Don Callis family in due time. They're working towards that. And maybe Jericho can kind of, manage both guys. Take them under his wing. And I think that would be great, if we're being honest. All right, moving on. This leads us into Will Ospreay. He beats up Jon Moxley. He throws him into a stack of beer kegs that were empty. So, AEW's officials and referees, they separate them, and there's that. All right, moving on from that, this leads us immediately into MJF. He shows up. Then Omega shows up. So apparently there's rules here. So if MJF hits Kenny, he loses the title. He'll be stripped of the title. And if Kenny hits MJF, he'll lose his title opportunity. Okay, that's fine there. So both guys signed the contract. So MJF was about to speak. Kenny Omega tells him to shut up. Kenny said that MJF isn't going to be... my bad. Kenny told MJF that this isn't going to be one of his performances that he rehearsed in the mirror before they came out. So Omega continues and said that he must have been admiring his designer suit and his beautiful hair plugs. Kenny said that MJF would have everyone backstage believe that he's responsible for the company's success, but Kenny doesn't believe it. Kenny knows that the crowd's there to see the best wrestlers. So Omega puts over the crowd and thanks them. Kenny says when he was knocking on Death's door, because they knew they needed something better than MJF, he said someone needed to knock MJF down a peg and make sure he's never close to the world title ever again, and that he's going to be the guy to do it. So MJF, he stood up, he clapped for Kenny. MJF asked Kenny if he was serious about being 100%, and then he laughed. MJF said that Omega's knees, ankles, and shoulders are aging like the bags of milk that the Canadian crowd loves to drink, which is hilarious. I like that. MJF said he could go on about Omega being just like his injury-prone boyfriend, Kota Ibushi. But he preferred to talk about what Kenny doesn't want him to say. So MJF begins to pose the question as to why Kenny wants the belt so bad and whether Kenny would tell them or if he would. So Kenny didn't say anything. MJF revealed that Kenny's diverticulitis is at a point where his stomach could explode anytime, anywhere. Then MJF said that Kenny's a ticking time bomb and a false idol who would be better off dead. So this pissed off Kenny Omega. He tipped over the table. So Speedball came out to make the save. So Speedball gets on the mic and he's told MJF that Omega was... my bad. Speedball said that MJF was trying to goad Kenny Omega because he's afraid. He said that he should be thanking Kenny because without him there is no AEW and there's no MJF. So apparently Mike Bailey called Kenny Omega a living legend. I'm like, what the hell's going on with that shit? No, not really, Mike. Not really, Speedball. Not really. And he said that MJF is not on his level because the only place he's a legend is inside his own head. So Mike Bailey then said that his head might need an adjustment so he could kick him into tonight in the greatest country of the world. So Omega then gets on the mic and said that he spoke to MJF's doctor, and he'd rather be missing 24 inches of his intestines rather than his balls. So MJF takes the bait, and he said that he would fight Mike Bailey in the main event, but he would make an example out of him. He called Canada a dump, and then he said that he was from the greatest country that matters, the only country that matters, and that's the United States of America. And he would enter the match as an American hero. Okay, I like that. Really cool stuff there. Interesting. All right, that's fine. Speedball didn't need to win, and he's not going to win anyway. So, there's that. I'm guessing after he's done with this, Speedball will just go back into the mid-card, right? Moving on, this leads us into the first match of the night, which was the Demand, Ricochet, Total Leon, and Bishop Khan. They were defeated by Kenny Omega, Jungle, Jack Perry, and Brody King. I should have just I don't know why I forgot Jack Perry's name. I don't know why I keep on trying to call him Jungle Boy. I mean, he is the same person, but I mean, whatever. Who gives a shit? The babyfaces, they win. Kenny Omega gets the win via the one-wing angel. There's that. That's fine, I guess. Whatever. Who gives a damn? This match went on for a long-ass time. Way too damn long. Way too long, man. But that's AEW for you. Moving on, this leads us into Willow Nightingale. Her sexy ass was backstage. And she said she wanted to defend her title on the special Thursday night edition of Collision coming up in an open challenge. So Renee Paquette, she was backstage. She interviewed Edge and Christian. Edge said that tonight's not the night and that they would take out FTR and anyone who got in their way. So Christian went to hit Renee with a chair. But Adam Copeland said that Renee's not in their way and bickered with Christian as they walked away. Okay, that's fine there. All right. Who's going to be the open challenge? Who's going to answer the open challenge for Willow? I don't know. It could be Dani Luna, who has now been released from TNA. So that's why she lost at Sacrifice last week. So that's fine. So she could be the one to answer the call. Maybe. Or it could be somebody like a Hikaru Shida or somebody like that or whatever. I don't know. It's still not going to make me watch Collision, although I might check out the highlights or whatever, but, it is what it is. All right, moving on. This leads us into Kristen and Edge. They busted into FTR's locker room. They found Rocky Romero and Trent Beretta. They told them that they weren't there, and then Edge and Christian beat them up, which is fine. So there's that. Cool stuff there. All right, moving on from that, let's lead us into Pac versus Will Ospreay. So, Will Ospreay got beat up by Pac on the making his entrance. So he ate a nasty brainbuster on on the ramp. So he was out for a while. Ospreay sold this thing for a good 5 minutes. Basically, well, not 5 minutes. I say a good 3 minutes. Officials were checking on him and everything else and all that stuff. They tried to get him to stop, but Will Ospreay was being defiant. So, this match was solid. So Pac gets the win. No, my bad. Ospreay gets the win. So he ends up winning via roll-up, which is fine. It is what it is. This, like the first match, was a long-ass match. But again, it's AEW. This is all they know how to do. You got to have everybody booked 50-50. Everybody has to get their shit in. It has to be like it's Dragon Ball Z and everything else. And, Yu Yu Hakusho and all that. All the fight animes from the 90s, basically. Well, which is fine, but damn, it didn't need to be that long. So, post-match, Pac, he continued the attack. So Will Ospreay hit him with the hidden blade, took out Pac. The Death Riders, they showed up, and they beat up Ospreay, and they put a steel chair around the neck of Ospreay. Claudio was about to stomp on the neck of Ospreay, but Moxley stopped him. So Moxley gets on the mic and told Will Ospreay to examine the situation that he found himself in. And John Moxley reminded Will Ospreay that there's six of them, and asked him how he thought it was going to go. So John Moxley told Will Ospreay that this could have been a bad night for him, but he told him to use his head next time. Moxley told Will Ospreay that it isn't personal to him, and he wanted him not to take it personal. Okay, that's fine there. It seems like this doesn't need to be a regular match, if we're being honest, because it really doesn't. If we're having Moxley doing shit like this, you gotta make this, maybe like a steel cage or something, or a no DQ, something, because, I don't know. But, it's fine. It seems like they're probably going to end up having Will Ospreay be the one to dethrone Jon Moxley, basically. Because there's no point in Moxley winning, right? We don't even know if the belt's going to be on the line or not. We don't know. We've got 1 week to go. Because next week it's the go home show. I don't know what they're going to do. But I'm glad that we're getting the match next week. And at least we're getting that out of the way. Maybe you build up Will Ospreay. Maybe they're going to do the Owen. But what's Ospreay going to do at Double or Nothing in May? That's what's got me kind of perplexed and confused a little bit. Like, what is he going to do for May? It could be where they continue the feud, Moxley and Ospreay. You could continue their feud that way. So that makes sense. So maybe you get two matches out of this thing, and then from there you move on. With Will Ospreay going over both times, basically. So, whatever. Moving on. This leads us into Tekla, Sky Blue, and Julia Hart versus Mina Shirakawa, Jamie Hayter, and Alex Windsor, the Brawling Birds and Triangle of Madness. I didn't watch this match, wasn't really into this. Mina Shirakawa and the Brawling Birds, they get the win. Who cares? I really don't care about this. Although I'm a fan of Tekla. I don't really too much care about Sky Blue, nor do I care about Julia Hart. Moving on. This leads us into Darby Allin. He was out next. Got a pretty good reaction. So Darby gets on the mic and demands that MJF get his ass down to the ring. Pause. Darby said that he's willing to die for the AEW World Championship, which is scary and very, very morbid. I think Darby needs to check himself into an insane asylum if he has those types of thoughts. So Darby says that he knows the MJF is running scared by hiring the Don Callis family. So Don Callis showed up and told Darby that if he can defeat his handpicked member of the Don Callis family dynasty, then he would, then MJF would give him a AEW championship match. So Andrade is the guy. So, there's that. And then the Don Callis family, they proceed to attack Darby. And then Jack Perry, Omega, they show up to make the save. Okay, that's fine. I still don't understand why Darby still wants the AEW World title. I'm sorry. He doesn't need to be in this story. He just doesn't. He had his time. He chose to climb Mount Everest. It was perfect for Darby to be the one to dethrone Jon Moxley when he was champion with the whole Death Riders bullshit last year. And Darby chose to basically be selfish and do what he wanted to do. Again, I can't seem to care about this. I don't. And I don't want Andrade to be in this position because we know Andrade is going to lose. So, it sucks. I could see Darby beating Andrade anyway. And then maybe in due time, they'll kick out Andrade and Takeshita from the Don Callis family. Because those guys don't need the Don Callis family. They just don't. So, yeah. Moving on from that, this leads us into the main event of the evening. MJF defeats Speedball Mike Bailey. This was a long-ass match, just like the previous matches before it, outside of the the 6-woman tag. That was the first match on the show. This match was very, very long. So, MJF wins via the Heat Seeker, and he yelled, "God bless America," which was great. So MJF wins. He ended up hitting a Tombstone Piledriver, followed by the Heat Seeker for the 1-2-3. Remember back in the 90s when Undertaker hit the Tombstone Piledriver? It was over. you knew nobody was going to kick out of that move, and now in 2026, it just seems that it's a transition move. Like everything else, from the super kick, DDT, pedigree, all that shit. Cutters, all that. But hey, it's pro wrestling for you. It's pro wrestling for you, man. But post-match, MJF beat up Speedball, and then Omega made the save. MJF scurried away, and there was that. So he said some words to Omega. Omega said some words to MJF, and Omega then stood tall with Mike Bailey, and that was it. So this is fine, I guess. It is what it is. Kind of a weak Dynamite, if you ask me. The only thing of note was Chris Jericho returning. That was the only thing of note. Everything else was just, it is what it is. Typical Dynamite. Because we know Darby's going to win at Dynasty. So it's probably going to be Darby and MJF. So they're not going to let that go. So Tony Khan ended up reviving that storyline when you really didn't need Darby to be in there, if we're being honest. You could have had him there last year, but again, Darby was being selfish. I didn't really care about any of the matches on this show. I just didn't. It is what it is, man. I don't care. This was more so of a filler Dynamite, if you ask me, minus Chris Jericho. Chris Jericho being back is fine. It is. Hopefully, he's in a managerial role. He needs to be. I think that's the best version of Jericho. No wrestling. I would love for him to work with Takeshita and Andrade. I think that would be great. Take those two guys under his wing. And that would be great. And then hopefully in due time he can go back to WWE. Hopefully. But we'll have to wait and see. But all in all, Dynamite was kind of so-so this week. But what did you guys think? Let me know. Like, comment, subscribe. Peace.